the price is right. Let's make sure we're recording everything. Sean Cheney is here. Jason Burnham is here. This is a good day. This is a good day.
Oh, God.
Hello, everybody. Well, guess what, Tom? It worked today. It worked today.
What worked? Oh, it worked beautifully today. 100%.
Was that bad yesterday? Was that bad yesterday?
What?
The sound.
Was that bad yesterday?
No. What? This is the irony of ironies. Yesterday was a guy who's a YouTube producer, and his internet connection didn't work, and his video was poor. And today we've got Kevin Ryan, who can't even figure out how to get on the front page above the fold of his own search engine name results. So what the hell is going to happen tomorrow?
Right. Great ironies. This is just to keep you on your toes, Joseph. You have to be prepared for anything.
Where is he? Should we go hunt him down?
The search man can't find us.
That's Kevin for you.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, let's get him. Let me tell.
Google him.
No, because I won't find him otherwise. Let's see. Join after show.
How you doing, Sean?
Doing good. How you been? It's been a while.
I know.
Decided to take a break from staring at contracts all day.
I really missed that about the internet.
Yeah. The funnest part of the job.
Yes.
Nothing I love more.
Yeah, that's the joy of having no contracts to have to review. Wait a second. I'll take a one-pager letter of understanding. It says, please don't cancel culture me.
There he is, Mr. Ryan himself. You figured it out, buddy.
That's a different thing we've had to encounter over the last 9 months, a different kind of cancel culture. Like, it does not apply to our clients. Don't cancel us.
Kev, you canceled me, man. What happened? You were supposed to come over for a barbecue. Then you just completely flaked.
I have 1 hour to get out of the house on any given day, and where I'm not like chasing one of the 3 kids around. And that hour is spent on, a mountain bike. And it's not just a clever name, man. Short Hills. It's just like, it's a lot of this.
I moved to a mountain.
I know. So we should talk, because I would love to come up and
take that offline.
That's where I've been escaping, man. 20 years of not being on the ground for a week, ever. And now I can't leave. I've been escaping into the country.
Yep. I just did that too permanently, though.
That's awesome. I mentioned your write-up on Social Dilemma. I thought that was really cool. You did. There was no adding to that. There was just, hey, this is different.
It was a good piece, Burnham.
Thank you.
What did you say? Give us the tweet size version. I'm kidding, but
be honest with you, I don't remember. It was just something that was, I don't know. I don't remember actually.
I love that.
Keep your children away from screens.
You said I love it when the Social Dilemma checkmates the Russian at the end.
that is what just killed me. I created everything. I'm the monetization genius behind the like button, to this, to that. And they all just congratulated themselves for the whole thing. And then at the end, they're like, so whose fault is it? Whoa! It's nobody's fault. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Great. That's lovely.
They throw the porn debate at you. Is it the creators of it or the people that watch it are the ones that are to blame? Like, oh, got it. That's fair.
I wouldn't know.
We're all to blame.
Yes.
For porn?
That's the answer. Well, that too.
So Tom, as you can see, a couple of us know each other here.
Yeah, that's good. Always good.
What did
That's
Tom
what-
Morris have to? What did Tom Morris have to say about today?
You know, I loved a lot of aspects of today, but you know what? The thing I think, Kevin, that you didn't plan on, you didn't see coming, this question Joseph asked you about OCD, and the way you answered the question, I thought was just brilliant, and it was honest, and it was vulnerable, and it was kind of interesting because last night I was on a 2.5 hour Zoom call with a bunch of CEOs. And toward the end of the call, about 20 minutes from the end, one of them said to me, "What's the greatest struggle you've ever had to face?" It was like, oh my God, I did a mental search for every reasonable, non-embarrassing, non-shameful struggle I could think of to talk about. And a little voice said, no, go deep. And so I ended up talking about my ridiculous childhood and the deep emotional wounds that resulted and how that crapped up my life for a long time until I got it all figured out. And that somehow that wound was my superpower as long as I knew how to deal with it and not let it shut me down and everybody around me as well. So as I was talking about it last night, I was thinking, oh my God, I'm revealing all this stuff that I don't like to talk about, but actually I've written it into a book manuscript that's not going to be out for a while, but I didn't really feel like talking about it, but it ended up being a great thing for everybody. We ended up talking about a famous guy from Yale who wrote a book called The Wounded Healer years ago about how our deepest wounds and our struggles make us unique, make us who we are, and sometimes give us our superpower if we respond properly. So anyway, that's just a long way of saying, and thank you for you doing it today. I kind of felt affirmed having had to do it last night on the spot, and you did it so well today. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there every day, right? And that's
every
that's
day.
the thing. But you don't want it to be, you know, like, oh, you're that's no, now I get it. You're that, you know, because you don't want to
No.
be that.
No.
That's the worst part about it, is that you don't want to be that or be known by, you know, be identified that way. But it's there every day.
And everybody who hears us talk about it, though, who has any sense of self-reflection themselves, they say, oh, that's his version of what I have to go through. But everybody has to go through something, right? And so if we could be honest enough to talk about it, it maybe goads other people to be a little more self-reflective about the struggle they have in their own lives, right? Because there's always
Tom, actually, what I meant, I mean, I appreciate your response, but what I really was asking is, what is the correct pronunciation of Heraclides? Heraclitus, but fine.
Listen, you do it so well in your own alternate universe way, I wouldn't even want to touch it.
Oh, he gave that back to me with interest.
I'm just going to call him the H guy from now on.
Can I jump in one thing, Joe? One thing I will say to Kevin, and hi, Kevin, it's been a long time. That listening to you describe OCD, I live with someone with OCD. So it's also how other people around you have to work with and understand what's going on. And understand what's going on in your head, because many times my husband's tried to describe what's going on in his head when he does things and I've taken years to learn how to accept and work around it and all that. So I'm sure that your family too has had to learn how to work around, or with, maybe with is a better word, with what you deal with every day and how your brain just looks at things and processes things.
It doesn't. It doesn't. The 2 points I wanted to add is, it doesn't define you unless you let it define you. And we're living in a world of labels. So, you know, I think of Ted Rubin, right? Ted for the longest time on Facebook was known as Ted Libtard Rubin. And he took what he was accused of and almost, you know, pejoratively, you know, called, and he wore it as a badge of pride. Mm-hmm. And he became defined as that. And the interesting irony, the sting in the tail, is that Facebook kind of blocked him or suspended him or threatened to suspend him because of the name libtard. The algorithm, what do you call it? The algo, what's the word, Kevin? The algo bubble didn't realize that there was a bit of self-deprecation and the context of how he was using it. But I think to myself, he chose to define himself as the libtard. And even one of my kids the other day said, "Hey, how's libtard doing?" You know, because was wondering where he was in a conversation. But I think on the flip side, you're only defined by something if you allow yourself to be defined by that, because us are so much more. This is the whole point. We're so much more multifaceted and deeper and richer and more valuable than a name, a label, or a categorization, and certainly not the way we voted. That's the one point. The second point is, I find that this is, Tom, I'm talking to you and to you, Kevin. Part of this growth for me has been being able to be very honest and vulnerable in front of people. But what I've realized is at least 50% of, just a made up number in this case, of people can't deal with it. They just can't deal with with vulnerability and that emotion. You know, when I've spoken about even going through this COVID period of revenue, you know, of the fact that all my speaking revenue just went to hell in a handbasket, I share it with people for two reasons. One is because, of course, it went to hell in a handbasket. There are no more events. Who the hell is hiring keynote speakers to run around the world? But the second is, I know that I'm not alone. I know that everyone is in the same boat as me. But my point is, and then I'll shut up and let you guys talk for a bit, is that it's amazing to me how emotionally stunted people are, that they just can't deal. They just can't deal with it. They have so many walls and barriers, you know, and God forbid they should actually be able to reach out and virtually hug and say, "Me too," or "I understand how you feel." And so the point is, to both of those, it's not about you, it's about them.
You know, that's why anger and rage are so widespread, because they're fairly easy emotions to deal with. They're essentially cathartic. You're letting it out as you rage at someone, as you're angry at someone. People are much less comfortable dealing with the rest of the range of emotions. And in fact, I've known a lot of people who like that. They couldn't deal with disappointment. They couldn't deal with fear. They couldn't deal with anxiety. They couldn't deal with so many things. So they go to anger instead. Because first of all, that allows them to point to somebody else rather than reflect on themselves. And it's also this catharsis of getting rid of energy that they don't know how to process more productively. So I think the more examples we try to give people of dealing with other emotions and dealing with our own vulnerabilities, you can nudge some people over. I've seen success in helping other people embrace a wider range of emotions than those they typically would go to.
Yeah, a lot of it also has to do with what we reward as a society, right? So a lot of times, you know, where our values reside, and we value things like strength,
yeah,
right? And what does it really mean to be strong? I mean, then forget about it. I mean, then you start to get into just, you know, how we stereotype genders, right? In that role, in that process, right? So a lot of, you know, how we show up emotionally has to do, you have to apply the cultural context to it, right? Because it becomes very specific also to the US versus when you go to other types of cultures.
It is, Jason. That's something that amazed me. I've mentioned on this after show a number of times that last year I reread the Iliad twice and the Odyssey 4 times. And in the Iliad, all these amazing warriors are crying all the time. And it's like, you read this as an American, you say, what? You know, Achilles is bawling, he's weeping, and you say, come on, man. You know, and you don't understand they had a different way of dealing with and embracing emotions. You know, these guys who finish killing a bunch of Trojans and they come and hug each other, you know, and they're crying. And it's like, whoa, we've got a long way to go to get in touch with the full range of healthy human emotions.
But wasn't it for so long? I mean, crying, growing up, I remember, you know, my brothers weren't allowed to cry. I mean, it was, you know, me and my sister could, but boy, my brothers cried. It was I don't know what was the societal thing that was like, repressed thing that they shouldn't be crying. Why would they cry?
Yeah.
Jason, you're nodding. You're probably.
Well, no, that's more of a personal reflection. I actually make it a point, like, so if I actually find intentional moments to cry. So like if I go through extended periods of time where I haven't had a good cry, I try to create a situation where it becomes intentional crying to allow for the emotional release.
I want to cry listening to you tell this story.
All right. Good for you, man. That's good. You're my new Achilles,
I love you, Ryan.
Sounds like a good new meditation app, the crying app.
Right, let's all sob together, right?
Or we could turn it into a game and call it the crying game, but that's
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to cry, I posted just a little while ago a video on Facebook about climate change. And if you watch it, if you follow me on Facebook, watch it. It made me literally get to the point of like, not hysteria, but I was very upset.
I think the point is, up is down. Everything has been turned on its head. But the most positive aspect of all of that is that what society has always viewed as a weakness is in fact a strength. Yeah. And like crying. And even when we look at the what has happened in terms of gender roles, quite literally and figuratively, there is something very, very powerful and positive about being able to blend and to share and to realize that that the world is just moving in a different direction now.
I think I've already bored you guys with this, but if you haven't read it, it's For the Love of Men.
The what?
What's it called?
For the Love of Men.
For the
Love of Men.
Okay.
Because she is a Vox journalist, probably 32, 33 years old, very smart, very charismatic, and she actually wanted to understand the Me Too movement because she was angry. There's like a lot of people in general. And so she decided to go out and do this very professorial research domestically to understand why men act the way they act. And then she actually extended that research out to Africa and places like Norway and Iceland and Sweden. And she basically found out that the societal constructs globally, as it relates to masculinity, are very similar. So the crying aspect was one of them. Man up, those types of phrases as you grow up. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. And basically the end result was that she said, and I'm paraphrasing her, but she's like, I'm sorry, guys, it's a lot harder for you than I anticipated. And as you said earlier, Kevin, she's not talking about the monsters like Harvey Weinstein, right? She's talking about men. And then she goes off into the sidebar of incels, which are involuntarily celibate men who rage at the world because it's not that they don't have physicality with women. They don't even have an emotional relationship with women. They're ignored by women and they're irrelevant to other men. And because of that, they have no place in our society. And she talks specifically about if you're not a captain of industry, if you're not an athlete, if you're not sexually promiscuous, if you're not, tall and handsome, who are you? Are you masculine? Are you a man? And if you're not, how do you deal with that? And it's a fabulous book. I mean, I've bored you guys with this book before, but it's great. I've read it twice.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I've just Googled it. I'm gonna get it on Amazon once we're done. Thanks for reminding us of it. Cool stuff to think about. So you didn't expect that today's show would go so much in that direction, right? I mean, look at what we end up talking about. You can never predict in this after show what threads we're going to pick up on and run with. And yesterday, I mean, every day I learned something in this after show. Somebody says something that sparks me to think a bunch, and sometimes I'll blog about it the next day. But Joseph, your soliloquy at the beginning, talking about the struggle with yesterday's show and the audio and video not working well from the guest's side of things, and what do you do? Do you pull the plug? Do you try to just? But we were all like Egyptian archaeologists putting together bits of clay and trying to make sentences out of them yesterday. I mean, it was a tough from the viewer's point of view, and you did exactly the right thing. I mean, Well, I got a page of notes out of it, but it was really a tough listen, but you did a great job.
It was hard, and one of the things that I've certainly learned, which I still bring, part of my approach to this is try and be as professional as possible, emulate a show that's as good as as any show on television, whether I'm trying to compare it to The Daily Show or Bill Maher or whatever the case may be. But 50% of it says, stay true to who you are and from whence you came, which is the ability to be not just irreverent, but just recognize that this is social media. This is a world that people, like Cheney and Burnham and, Laredo, Ryan, Dumont, like these, I'm talking about, and then this is from our little marketing circle, but then pioneers like Garfield, etc., that we define this. We created this world. We created a world. We wrote books called Joy in the Conversation. We were there at the beginning, and we defined what those ground rules were. And maybe it's time for us to reclaim that higher ground and say, this is how it's done, because what's actually been happened is all of this beauty has been absolutely perverted and bastardized and monetized, one and the same. And so part of that is being able to say, hey, listen, I'm just going to call it time of death, man. The show's not working.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm doing it in my house. Sorry.
PBS headquarters, right? But see, here's the cool thing. When this
let me reframe. I'm doing this in the back office of the Four Seasons Landscaping.
Well, that's it, right?
That's
but I have to tell you this, Joseph. While you were struggling with the worst of it yesterday, I remembered a time that my family and I were in St. Petersburg, Russia, right after the Soviet Union broke up. And we were watching in this beautiful performance hall, we were watching the St. Petersburg Radio and Television Orchestra play this beautiful symphony. And in the middle of the ethereal music, a stray dog walked onto the stage and sat down right next to the first violin and started scratching himself. And everybody just loved it. In fact, I think there's a short video of it on YouTube. It was the most amazing moment. And, in the way we do these Zoom things, a dog could walk in and lick the camera at any minute, right? A kid could come running in the room and go like this. And that's just our new world. And it's really kind of liberating. So it's not a disaster. It's not a train wreck. It's not a car crash. It's kind of like, yeah, that's how we live now. That's how we roll. And you put it well.
Thank you. You bring up actually a very interesting human truth, which is, there is nothing better than when you are on Broadway and you're like at a, and you're at a play or even SNL where they just crack up and they get the giggles.
Yeah.
That's the best thing in the world. Yeah. And funnily enough, SNL has a no breaking character rule. Lorne is very unforgiving when people do that, but it's the best thing in the whole world.
It's the human
and you
thing.
Just wanted to, it's so human. And it just shows you, Kevin, that's for you, that little bit of vulnerability or that little crack in the armor exterior, that is humanity.
Yeah.
And what's happened, unfortunately, in the socials is that we haven't broken down boundaries or walls. We built them back up. We hide behind our keyboards. We hide behind anonymity. Anonymity was was what actually leveled the playing field and allowed, David to slay Goliath. And now anonymity has actually been completely, used against us. And that's all of those things are what we need to reclaim.
It's and we didn't get into this too much, but it's been weaponized to the extent that they've refined that nuke so much at this point. And someday maybe I'll write a book about some of this stuff. But there was another situation where a prominent young writer director came from a very good Hollywood family. And, you know, a group of people went after him to a ridiculous extent. So I found myself standing in front of, you know, money people in production saying, we developed this analytics system. Look, these are the people that are making fun of him. And these are the people that are criticizing him. You can still hire him because the people that are criticizing him are still going to buy tickets to these movies. And I was right. And then a lot. I was right big. If I'd taken a piece of that back end, no offense, but wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But it's amazing when I deconstructed the people that were coming after them and how they were monetizing their rage and how they were monetizing other people's rage. It'll make you sick. I mean, I talked a little bit about how this can definitely send you down the path into a dark place. And there are definitely times when I was working on projects like this that I went to a very dark, cynical place because it becomes very difficult to believe anybody, particularly when you can just say, okay, well, this is exactly how they're doing it.
That was a good story.
That was the Howard Stern effect as well, because earlier in his career, it would have been very easy for some of those networks to simply cancel him because of all the complaints until they took a deeper look.
Yeah.
Look at the ratings. I think it was, you know, people who didn't like him were listening longer, and so it's that same effect and digging one layer deeper.
Yeah, and the social the social shaming doesn't mean that it's going to cost you any money. And in a lot of instances, it's quite the opposite. And, you know, I mean, it's just amazing to see how people react to that and making hundreds of millions of dollars and billion-dollar decisions based on what a group of people got together and decided to tweet about and to, you know, create their own negativity bubble so that they can monetize the other stuff that they're doing. I mean, it's just when you show people that this is why this is happening, it's not the reason you think it's happening. They're all like, it's the same reaction every time. What were we thinking?
You know, Kevin, it reminds me of the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein novel. This is the monetization monster. And the irony of our time is that we've had so many people on this show in the last few months who've talked about the Business Roundtable and the new announcements of so many CEOs about how they're going to take it into account now, not just shareholders, not just money, but all the stakeholders of their companies, of their businesses, everybody who's affected, the communities, the environment, everything. And yet, with respect to some of our newest businesses, the technology side of things and social media, we're kind of seeing the opposite of that at the very same social moment. So that's really fascinating. And your story today about how you tell somebody, look, you got to make this change because you've ruined this person's life, and they just kind of laugh at you, and you say, okay, here's a way you can make money by making the change. And, oh, okay. It's like, who wouldn't be cynical, right? But we're seeing so much pushback from away from that in other businesses. It makes your head spin.
It almost feels like, and I even said, like, I wrote it in the comments in terms of what people were searching for. How do we cancel culture?
Right.
But where it needs to come from is the same place that it came from. So in other words, instead of, you know, as I said in the show, let's be honest about it. All this rage and cancel culture seems to be focused more on the liberal side of the equation versus the conservative side. And so it needs to come from the liberal side to say, you know what? I mean, all I could think of is Dave Chappelle did anybody watch SNL this weekend with Dave Chappelle's opening monologue? And he said something about women, basically like not that they shouldn't be paid as much as men, or he made some comment.
It was a poor joke that didn't land.
It was a poor joke that didn't land, and then people started to like kind of boo or whatever, and he looked at them and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, did I trigger you?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Holy!" But he just powered through. You know, but a different person might have got canceled because of that.
Well, he's been proactively fighting against the cancel culture, right? I mean, like that's been part of his new platform right now, right? So it's like, so part of him even just doing some real off-color jokes on SNL was more of a strategy than it was just trying to make people laugh. Like he was really trying to go after cancel culture. I mean, he was doing that with his initial stand-up, you know, that came out whatever the year, last year before. It's a similar thing. Like he's trying to really be an activist against it.
And look, I felt very, very awkward and very uncomfortable, but I kind of like, you know, SNL's been pushing it with Bill Burr and, you know, and it's listen, it's even me now, I'm trying not to say what I'm going to say, which is that maybe it's not a bad thing for some politically insensitive and incorrect jokes, because they're fucking jokes. They're jokes.
Oh, you've got to listen to the comics who, you know, the that are very upset about that, you know, they can't make a politically incorrect joke without getting roasted and declared, you know, all sorts of bad names. And it goes back to Lenny Bruce days. I mean, it's I'm around a lot of comics through my connection with the Friars Clubs, and most of them are, you know, it hurts them a lot. It hurts their, you know, their creativity. They, you know, that's how they think. You know, that the best thing about comics is they actually talk the truth. I mean, not like how they say it, but you know, most comedy is based in truth, right? And that's been really hard on that whole genre of entertainment.
Yeah.
All right. So
the thing you're just really seeing though is it's not something that we have never experienced. This is a shift in values, right? With every new generation, they usher in new ways of thinking, new types of values. The what we're up against now is that pace of change, right? Because of social media, things are accelerating at a much faster pace. People share ideas faster. People, you know, migrate to certain kinds of concepts a lot quicker than before you had things like social media. And social media has now given power, right, to people's voices like they've never had before.
Yeah.
So now people also feel empowered that they can actually change the discourse of culture, and media has just rewarded that behavior, right? And so now it becomes, you know, self-perpetuating at that point.
And often it's a quote taken out of context, but again, I mean, it's so interesting. We've really come full circle in this really, really awesome after show. I have to say to everyone who participated and everyone who's on, is that it does come back to, it's follow the money. You know, it's how, and of all people that should know it, it's us. You know, the people, the digital OGs here, that we created a monster. We created a monster, and it's
nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault.
Yeah, and at the heart of this is advertising. All right, so everybody, we're a little north of 30 minutes. I forgot to do something with Kevin, so I'm going to ask you all to just stay. I'm going to mute everyone except for Kevin. In fact, I'm not going to mute everyone. So if you kibitz, you kibitz. Kevin, there's a question that I have to ask you, and
B.
Huh?
B.
What?
I mean, like
multiple choice.
The meme that was floating around at the beginning of the lockdown. Would you rather be A, locked away with your wife and kids for the next 4 months, or B?
Yeah, no. Well, the answer actually I was looking for was 42, but it's actually something that I'm meant to be asking all my guests this one question this whole week, and so I'll just give you like 30 seconds to answer the question, and then it's something I'll put into a little video for next week. But the question is, what will you tell your grandkids, your grandchildren about this time, the time we're living in? And specifically, I was referring to the week of the election and post, but you can really answer it any way you want to. I mean, it could be also these times of COVID. What will you tell them? So I'll just give you the floor for 30 seconds or a minute, whatever you.
So I would say this is a period of time where everybody discovered exactly who they are, and you could no longer hide behind anything, because your universe was boiled down into just how close you're going to be to everything around you. And the walls come down. and have come down. And this was the moment, I think, for a lot of people, it certainly has been for me, that I could stop. As difficult as things have been, as difficult as the work has been, as difficult as being locked down and watching the world seemingly come unglued, you don't have a choice but to find yourself, and realizing that I just don't need all this stuff. Yeah, that's what I would say.
That's awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for asking him, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I was having such fun with him. And I mean, Kevin, how funny is it? Like all the things that we didn't even get to talk about, which is, it's always fun for me to have someone like you come on the show, because I know that it's like, I don't need to plan or prep beyond a few embarrassing slides. But it's just, I almost wrote the description as two thought leaders walk into a bar. 5 acronyms are created or something. I don't know. How many thought leaders does it take to change a light bulb? I don't know what the punchlines are, but I was thinking of, that's where I was thinking. Instead, I got Zizou. I got Steve Zizou.
Steve Zizou. A lot of life's challenges can be boiled down to something from Steve Zizou. Well, listen, but thanks, man. This has been great. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you guys too. Hopefully we can do more of these.
Yeah, and I'll be you start the private investigation in terms of embarrassment, humiliation, and canceling Joseph Jaffe when I come on your.
Yeah, I think I would be a lot nicer. Having seen so much of the dark side of that universe, I want to start using those powers for good.
All right. Well,